My name is Ethan, and OCD makes me ask tormenting what-if questions every day. My first memory of OCD was a fear that my mom was going to die when I went to school. And so this is probably preschool or kindergarten, and I was deathly afraid that when my mother dropped me off at school, that she wouldn't come back to pick me up. So needless to say, I didn't want to be dropped off at school. That fear was shortly followed by a fear that my mother would look at the sun and go blind. So I wanted to stay with her and protect her from doing that. OCD started to impact and really take over my life around 8 or 9 years old, and it started, I guess, in a way that we usually think of traditional OCD. And I was counting and symmetry and checking things and constantly asking my parents for reassurance. And then as I got into high school, I became terrified of becoming ill. And so I would carry multiple thermometers around with me every day. I would take my temperature multiple times a day. I was always afraid that a headache was a brain tumor or fever was meningitis. And I just had this constant fear that something bad was going to happen to me. And then when I was older and obviously more adult responsibilities fell on my lap, the OCD really kicked up. I started to have a fear that I was going to accidentally hurt myself or harm myself even though I didn't want to. I was terrified that I would accidentally swallow pills and accidentally kill myself. Again, I didn't want to. I loved being alive. I didn't love my OCD though. And even that manifested into a fear of accidentally hitting my head and causing a brain injury. And at my worst, I was laying in my bed with my hands underneath my body to protect myself from myself because I was so convinced that I was going to accidentally hit my head and end up in the hospital. Even one week I went and got 5 CAT scans at a hospital. Yeah, it got really bad to the point where I was completely unable to function and live a normal life. And I was basically stuck in the guest bedroom of my parents' house, and I went from, a pretty functional individual, working and still struggling with OCD, but working, being meaningful in life, to, I hate to say nothing, but nothing, just existing. My OCD manifested really early. I started going to therapists and psychiatrists when I was 6, 7, 8 years old. Doctors just told my parents that I was creative, and it was just something that I might grow out of. It wasn't until I was age 14 that I was officially diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder. With the diagnosis did come a sense of relief in the sense that I had a name to what was going on, but then I embarked on a 17-year journey of improper treatment. So I saw 10 therapists. I just got sicker and sicker with each therapist that, tried to find out what had happened in my childhood or tried to figure out a way to help me get better, but just couldn't. And each time that happened, each time I met with a therapist and it didn't work out, I felt like something was wrong with me, that I was broken. I was too sick to get better. I was too sick for anyone to help me because I was going to experts that said they could help me, and then 6 months, 7 months, 2 years later, here I was in the same place or worse. And it was a lot of wasted time. A lot of wasted time. A lot of things I didn't do as a kid and a teenager that a lot of kids got to do. I didn't do sleepaway camps. I didn't go on senior trips. I went to college for 3 months and dropped out because I thought I had a brain tumor. This whole time I was seeing therapists and had an OCD diagnosis, but I just wasn't getting the proper treatment. And I didn't find the proper treatment until I was 31 years old. So 17 years between diagnosis and finally finding the proper treatment. By that point, it had been so long and I felt like I had failed so many people and failed myself and failed my family that when somebody said, "We can help you," I didn't believe them. I didn't have hope. I wasn't optimistic. I simply felt here was something else that was going to fail, and I was going to continue to prove that I was unhelpable, that I couldn't be fixed, that my brain was damaged and that I was damaged, and this was going to be my life. I still have a fair amount of health anxiety, and I think that was triggered by COVID. I still have some anxiety around food, and is food bad or did it go bad? Issues around and concerns around getting food poisoning and things like that. What if my partner hates me? To what if I'm doing a bad job at my job? To what if I'm a bad person? Or what if I got in trouble? Or what if I get in trouble? Or really just what if thoughts after what if thoughts after what if thoughts. I think the important thing to know is those what if thoughts don't have the power over me that they once did. And just because I have a what if thought doesn't mean that I have to do a compulsion to satiate the anxiety. I'm a lot more adept at sitting with the discomfort even after a what if thought. And I'm by no means perfect at it, but I kind of generally go with this rule that, more good days than bad. That's my mantra. And if I'm doing that, then I think I'm doing okay. I was very blessed in that when I found treatment, I had an incredible team that refused to give up on me, even when I gave up on myself. And I get to live a life that I truly never imagined I would ever live. But that doesn't mean that OCD doesn't exist for me. It doesn't mean that I'm not having obsessive thoughts. It doesn't mean that I don't compulse. My experience with OCD is a cautionary tale. I tell my story because it shouldn't happen again. And as long as I keep telling my story, it's my hope that no one else will struggle for as long as I did, will suffer for as long as I did, will go without the right help for as long as I did. And what's really sad is my story isn't unique or special. There are thousands of individuals with OCD that have a story just like mine. It just may not end up in the same way. And that's even more sad, that I should not be the exception, I should be the norm. Your story can be very different. You don't have to miss time. You don't have to miss things that are important to you. You don't have to miss out. The beautiful thing about OCD, if there is a beautiful thing about OCD, is that it's extremely treatable with the right treatment. And if you're watching this right now, then maybe you're a step closer to finding that treatment and getting that help and getting that diagnosis or finding that right therapy. And you're one step closer to regaining your life and living the life that you dream of, that full life. I think hope is important because OCD is relentless. What that means is it doesn't give up. And when you fight hard, it fights harder. In an effort to fight your OCD, you have to have hope. Hope has to be there because the fight against OCD is very much a dance. And it's very much a 2-step forward, 1-step back dance. And every time you take that step back, it's really hard to take those 2 steps forward again. And for me, that's why hope exists. That's why hope has to be there, to keep pushing you forward, to push me forward, to keep taking those 2 steps. Because at some point, some other force just carries you forward and you start feeling better. And there's no necessarily rhyme or reason why, other than you've been consistent in your therapy, you've been making good choices, you're living toward your values, and suddenly things begin to get bright. And I think that hope is that push. And so when that OCD kicks back up, and it does in treatment, it does in therapy, it does in life, and there may not be a specific reason why the OCD just gets loud and angry and yelly. That's why we have to use hope to motivate us to move forward, to motivate us to keep going, for us to be more relentless than the OCD. Because when we do that, that's when we find life. That's when we find that beautiful, joyous, full experience that we've been craving, that we've known has been down there for so long, that finally bubbles up. It's us. It's us. It's us. It's individuals. It's our individuality that's been crushed by OCD and now gets to bloom. When you use that hope as a tool to continue to push forward, you reach that place. And so hope for me is the ultimate weapon against OCD. New research is so vital because there are so many people that are still suffering, that are still struggling, that can't access treatment, that can't access therapy. And those people deserve to feel better. Those people deserve to get better. And so we have to have new research, because what we have now, it works, but it doesn't work for everybody. And those people that are still struggling and still suffering, they deserve to have those full, joyous lives. They deserve to feel better. They deserve to have a life just like mine. So new research is vital in order for every individual with OCD, regardless of how severe, regardless of money, location, access to care, gender, ethnicity, faith, tradition. Is vital that new research can continue so everyone with OCD can get their lives back. Because of my OCD, my brain loves to throw scary what-if questions at me every day. But what if you're not alone? And what if research brings hope?